This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites, like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies, like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Hi everybody, Sharyl Attkisson here. Welcome to another edition of Full Measure After Hours. Today, a crucial battleground, Operation Michigan. Today, we're going to get some insight from my visit to a key swing state to look at the Trump and Harris efforts to seal the deal for 2024. Republicans, it seems, are focusing a lot on election integrity and getting out the early vote, while Democrats, from what I can tell, are quite energized by Biden's withdrawal from the race. This week, Sunday on Full Measure, I'll be reporting from Michigan, as we'll be reporting from other key swing states as we build up to the 2024 election. From the time that I planned my trip to Michigan until the time I got there, things had turned quite a bit. Biden dropped out, and Trump went from what seemed like a pretty comfortable lead to a very tight race where then he seems to have fallen behind. What I did hear from voters on the ground, well, you'll hear from them Sunday, September 15th in my cover story. But interestingly, what I learned is that in Michigan, like several states, the vast majority of the state geographically is Republican. It's just a couple of places near the big cities that lean Democrat, and that's where the election can be decided. Republicans are focusing on, as you'll hear from a Republican official in a moment, getting out the early vote. He'll explain why that makes sense. It has to do with more than just getting people who are going to vote anyway to vote early, because why would that make a difference? He'll explain how it could help them. Democrats really do seem energized. The ones I ran into and talked to were not enthused, to say the least, to vote for Joe Biden. I don't know if some of them would have stayed home. One woman said she was planning to write in the vote for God because she didn't want to vote for Trump, but she also didn't want to vote for Biden. So when Harris came on the scene, people got really enthused, those who don't like Trump. And when I asked them why, by and large, they don't have a policy reason, which kind of makes sense since she hasn't really talked too much about that. They pretty much just don't like Donald Trump, and they want to vote for somebody else. And Harris's entry into the race gives them the chance to vote for a Democrat who's not Joe Biden, because even hardcore Democrats were very concerned, not feeling good about voting for Biden again. In today's podcast, you're going to hear a nuts and bolts analysis from a Michigan political scientist. Quite interesting. But first, the Republican in charge of getting out the vote in Michigan, Pete Hoekstra. What's it been like the past month or so being chairman of the Michigan Republican Party?
It's obviously very, very exciting. Right now we're in the midst of, we're going to have J.D. Vance, we're going to have Ben Carson, we're going to have the president maybe twice, and then Kristi Noem, so 6 visits in a span of 3 weeks. So clearly it's ground zero. We win Michigan, we win the presidency, we win Michigan, we win an open Senate seat, we take control of the Senate. We've got a couple of openings for in Congress that we can win, so it's pretty exciting.
How do you feel about the momentum? There's still time before the election for things to shift, but how are you feeling on the momentum?
I think we had great momentum. I think we kind of hit a little bit of a brick wall with Biden, being pulled out, Harris moving in. But I think it's going to come back as soon as we start talking about, the issues. When we're talking about the issues, when we go into the UAW and talk about their plan for electric vehicles, we win. We're talking about inflation, we win. If we get distracted, that's when we have a problem.
What is the importance of a swing state in general? It just seems like, I don't know if it's always been this way when this guy goes by. I haven't watched elections. I'm not a political reporter for many years, but swing states, it seems like most of the states are given either blue or red, and then there's just a couple of swing states that decide the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's the way it plays out. And Michigan moves between being a blue state and moving into being a swing state and possibly going red. We did it in 2016. We think we can do it again in 2024. But it means we sometimes have an identity crisis. But every election cycle, we're pretty confident that there's going to be a lot of attention paid on us, and that's a really positive thing.
With the election that close in a state like this, is there a lot of pressure on you personally and the people that work with you and organize to get out every single vote that could possibly go in your direction?
There's a tremendous amount of pressure to drive out the vote. There's a tremendous amount of pressure in this cycle to make sure that we've got election integrity. A lot of concerns about what happens in the city of Detroit, what happens in Wayne County. And we still have 53 counties. And you got to think about this. We have 53 counties out of 83 in Michigan that have more registered voters than eligible voters.
So that's impossible.
That's not possible, right? But it is in Michigan. We're working very, very closely with the National Committee to go in and get as much of that corrected in the voter files cleaned up before the election.
What concrete things are being done, if anything, you can point to differently this time in, say, Detroit, or places where people thought they might not have had full confidence, at least Republicans?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a full effort in terms of, on a legal basis, to go after, our Secretary of State came out and said, if someone signs for an absentee ballot or those types of things, you just have to assume it's the correct signature. And it's kind of like, no, the law says you actually have to go and verify. So we filed a lawsuit on that. We won. And so I think that the legal front is very, very much out front in getting done what we can get done before the election. The other thing that's happening is I think we're up to close to 100 people on the ground, identifying them, telling them exactly what we need to do as we get closer to when voting opens. And I think the third thing that's fundamentally different between this and 2020 is Donald Trump is saying vote early. Before he was saying, the other cycles he's been talking about, vote on election day. That's where we've got the cleanest process. And now he's saying, vote the day voting opens. And so our motto is let's win every single day, whether that's 30 days of voting, whether that's 45 days of voting. But if we win every day, then we win the election.
I've wondered about this. How does that help you unless there's more cumulative votes? Because if everybody's voting on one day or it's spread out, it's the same number of votes.
No, you got to, obviously, how that benefits us is, we can track who's voted. So as we get closer and closer to election day, the people that we need to focus on starts to shrink. Or we can just expand our universe to low propensity voters. And those types of things. So, once you bank the vote, it's kind of like, okay, don't have to deal with that person anymore, other than maybe contacting them and saying, hey, get your friends to come in and vote now. So it does fundamentally change the strategy. And it also takes the risk out of what the weather is like on election day if we have banked the votes. I know that we just had a primary a week and a half ago. We've had a fantastic summer. On primary day, all morning, it was raining and raining very, very hard. I could feel, Diane, I had to go somewhere else. I'm not going to go vote. But state party chairman, I had to go vote. But if I was having second thoughts, you can imagine there's a lot of people that were going to go vote that Tuesday morning, and probably decided, you know what, there's not that many issues on the ballot, we're not going in. And so bank the vote early, decreases the uncertainty as you get closer to Election Day.
So is it true in most states that the parties can track with precision who voted already and who didn't?
Yes.
By name?
By name.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so and you could see it in our primary results. Typically Democrats turn out earlier. They have more early voting than what Republicans do. On primary day this year in Michigan, we had more Republicans vote early than we did Democrats. So that's an encouraging trend that says, okay, more Republicans are open to voting early.
You've seen a lot of elections. Any just overarching thoughts about this one?
I mean, it's, we've got the same candidate on the Republican side, third time in a row, running against three different Democrats. We'll have, out of the four candidates, three of them will be brand new. I guess not. Harris has been on the VP side, but at the top of the ticket. And, again, a tremendous amount of interest. And, Donald Trump just generates a tremendous amount of excitement, a tremendous amount of energy, and energy on both sides, on the Republican side and on the Democratic side.
Next, political scientist David Attkisson with a hard read on Michigan's political landscape.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug, ignored a leaky faucet, pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look like that? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. But there's an easier way. Thumbtack is the app that makes it easier to care for your home. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, search, chat, and book highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Download Thumbtack and start caring for your home the easier way.
Achieving a gorgeous grin from home isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all of your sleuthing friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Michigan has been actually a very diverse purple state throughout much of its history. We've seen changes in its political ideology. Significantly in its early years, we had both Republican statewide electeds as well as Democratic statewide electeds. In recent years, we've seen it flip back and forth, both in terms of our state house and Senate and in terms of our statewide electeds and differences in the 2016 and 2020 presidential campaigns. So Michigan's a purple state.
Is it unusual that a state would go for one president or presidential candidate, and then after he's elected, turn on him the next time when he goes for re-election?
So that kind of change, especially quite so close in between each other, is not super common. But with Michigan being such a purple state and so much in play, and really the small margin of votes that we saw. 2016, Donald Trump won by about 110,000 votes. 2020, Joe Biden won by about 150,000 votes. It's like a 4% swing in the electorate. So with a state that close, it's very possible.
Okay, so I read, and I probably misread, that it was like 11,000 votes in 2016.
Yeah, that's not in Michigan. That's a different state, yeah.
Okay. So what do you see as your forecast, what's happening in Michigan now with all the upheaval?
Well, the upheaval is the right word to lead into that, because if you'd have asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said it looks like Donald Trump is on a flight path to winning Michigan. Most of the polls showed him ahead, and some of the demographics and the people who I've talked to, the enthusiasm gap seemed to be pretty dramatic. With the ascension of Vice President Harris to the Democratic nomination and her choice of a kind of a true blood Midwesterner in Governor Walz, I've seen a very significant shift that's not only played out in enthusiasm in the polls. Today, I'd have to say it looks like Harris is going to take Michigan.
Harris obviously has been there for 4 years, many would say doesn't have a strong track record. Mm-hmm. Is her main appeal, do you think, that she's not Donald Trump?
That's a significant part of what I am hearing, right? There were a lot of people who were like, we don't want the two old guys, right? Well, one of the parties seems to have switched that up and gone with someone who isn't one of the old guys. I do believe there are people who see some benefit in both her Senate experience, the way that she grilled some of our Supreme Court nominees, and in the way that she's been very, very vocal on issues relating to her race and her gender, her experience as a prosecutor. But a lot of people, it is much more visceral than that. It is, they recognize she represents something different than what they've had or what was on offer just a few months ago, and that seems to be her.
If you could say again, she represents.
Yeah, right. She represents something very different than what was on offer just a few months ago, and that seems to be a strong motivation for a lot of the people I'm talking to.
What are your thoughts about the notion that everybody has a vote, of course, but there's little mystery in a lot of states as to how it's going to come out, and the elections are boiling down to a couple of states and really a couple of cities, in effect, in a few states. What are your thoughts about that?
So it's my job as a political scientist to point out this is the system we've designed for ourselves. We have divided up our national popular vote into states, and we've divided that into electoral college votes, and that is the system we're working with. And that does create a more important, I'm going to wait for them again here, that does give leverage to specific states. Now, populations center around urban areas. Higher populations will generally gravitate to cities or be around cities. So yeah, your areas of highest concentration in a small d democratic system are going to carry more weight than large unpopulated rural areas. And unfortunately, when it comes to issues and identity in politics, that can sometimes create a sense of imbalance. There are other systems we could entertain. It would require a lot of popular support to change to one of those, but this is the way our system has been designed. So yeah, it does create a sense of imbalance.
On a national level, obviously it's going to be impossible to tell until election night, if we even know then, who the winner is. But do you have any gut feelings? And a lot could change between now and then.
Right.
But do you have any gut feelings right now?
So, again, my opinion has changed in the last several weeks. If you'd asked me before Biden stepped out, especially after the debate, I would have said it looks like we'll be inaugurating a President Trump in January of 2025. Now, with the way we've seen the motion in the swing states, with the tremendous fundraising, with the change in tenor and enthusiasm amongst the left and left-leaning moderates, I would say right now it's Harris back on top. But there's still a lot of election between now and then. We still have yet to see exactly how the debates are going to go, even between our vice presidential candidates. So there's a lot of engagement left to happen. But right now, I'd say the political winds seem to have shifted.
What I can think of is maybe it's something like the winner of Michigan did what successfully?
What do you mean?
Like,
we don't have a winner yet. You mean in the
I'm saying,
past?
what will the winner of Michigan do?
Right.
In order, what will they do?
Yeah.
Sure.
What
does it take to win Michigan?
What will they have done? Yeah. What does
Sure.
it take to win Michigan?
So, because of Michigan is a diverse state, because we have voters who are strongly allied with both parties and a significant number of independents who do move back and forth between elections, or who can be activated or deactivated depending on their enthusiasm, I think if you're going to win Michigan, you have to speak to blue-collar manufacturing issues. You've got to address some of the integrity issues that are really important to the state of Michigan. Michiganders kind of like to see themselves as people who don't suffer a lot of fools or deal with a lot of nonsense. You probably also have to make at least some commentary towards things like conservation and the environment. Even if you're not somebody who's a strong environmentalist, we have a lot of sportsmen and a lot of people who enjoy the outdoors here. Michigan is a strong agricultural base. So I think you need to address both the kitchen table issues, and you need to be a person who exhibits the leadership, the balance, the character to position Michigan and the rest of the country for success moving forward.
I think it's interesting. By the time this airs, Harris will have done a debate and will have given some interviews. Mm-hmm. But she's captured enthusiasm without having done really anything.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It tells me you've got some savvy people in her campaign. Because realistically, the idea of doing debates, and you see the same thing with Donald Trump kind of stepping back right now from the campaign stage. Both of them can do themselves more damage than good by making trip-ups on the national stage. If you've got a massive wave of support and enthusiasm going for your campaign, don't step on a rake. And I would say that to either campaign. When I heard that Donald Trump was kind of pulling back, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? He wants to spend time trying to define Governor Walz and trying to define, Vice President Harris and her new candidacy. Get him back off the stage and let them do that. Same thing with Harris and Walz. They've got this momentum running. let that run out, ride that wave. Don't do anything that's going to interrupt that. So in terms of political strategy, I see exactly why they're both doing it.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and that if you did, you will share it with your friends and leave us a terrific review. Check out my other podcast, the Sharyl Attkisson podcast, and I hope you'll consider ordering my new book just out, Follow the Science, How Big Pharma Misleads, Obscures, and Prevails. It's already an Amazon bestseller, a great gift for someone you care about who recognizes that something is seriously wrong with our healthcare system, all the money we're spending as we become sicker and sicker with chronic diseases. This book is a great way to take back control of your health. Do your own research, make up your own mind, think for yourself.